Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Hofstra University Museum of Art Second Fridays program. My name is Karen Albert. I'm the director of the museum. I see lots of familiar faces and names at this presentation, so I know some of you have joined us before. I wanted to let you know we are recording this, so if you don't want you can feel free to turn off your video if you don't want to be seen. Please leave your microphone on mute as I do the presentation, and you can always ask questions in the chat box, and at the end we'll leave time for question and answer. So this second Friday we kind of added as there was some more interest in continuing virtual programming because the museum galleries did open this September. And so we're very happy that we're open and have art and people back in the galleries, but we know some people are not either distance-wise can't make it out to us or aren't comfortable yet going out. So we thought we'd continue to offer a few programs for the Second Fridays. So these Second Fridays programs are focusing on different aspects of the museum's permanent collection. So the collection contains more than 5,000 works of art. And of those, approximately 950 are photographs, or about 18% of the collection. And of those photographs, about 100 of them use New York City as the subject matter. So today we're going to look at a sample of photographs that date from the 1930s to the 2000s. So just to get us started, not knowing how familiar everybody is with photography, although I'm sure everybody's taken photographs, want to just give you a very brief, quick background about photography and the invention of photography. So photography as we know it today began really in the 1820s and 1830s in France. Joseph Nicephore Niepce used a portable camera obscura to expose a pewter plate coated with bitumen to light. And this was the first recorded image that did not fade away quickly. So that's the first picture taken 1825, and it just records his view out the window in the Gracht. So that's a very early experimentation. So his success with this early photograph led to a lot of other experiments, and photography progressed very rapidly. Daguerreotypes, emulsion plates, and wet plates were developed almost simultaneously in the mid to late 1800s. With each type of emulsion, photographers experimented with different chemicals and techniques. So daguerreotype, Niepce collaborated with Louis Daguerre, and the result was the creation of the daguerreotype, which is a forerunner of modern film. So this is an early exposure from 1838 that I have here on the left. And this exposure time for that photo was 10 minutes, just to give you an idea. So the next development was emulsion plates or wet plates, which were less expensive than daguerreotypes and required only 2 or 3 seconds of exposure time. So it made them much more suited to portrait photographs, which was the most common use of photography at the time. And many of the photographs from the Civil War era were produced on wet plates. In the 1870s, photography took another leap forward when Richard Maddox improved a previous invention to make dry gelatin plates that were nearly equal to wet plates in speed and quality. The dry plates could be stored rather than made as needed. So this allowed photographers more freedom in taking photographs. And the process also allowed for smaller cameras that could be handheld. And as exposure times decreased, the first cameras with a mechanical shutter developed. So photography at this time was really only for professionals or the very wealthy, until George Eastman started Kodak in the 1880s. Eastman was the one who created the flexible roll of film, what we consider the old negatives, and that did not require constantly changing solid plates. So he developed the self-contained box camera that held 100 film exposures, and the customer would take the photographs and send the whole camera back to the factory and have the film developed. Very much the way the disposable cameras in the 80s and 90s worked. It was not until the late 1940s that 35 millimeter film became cheap enough for the majority of customers to use. So even though, photography is a couple hundred years old, the photography that we know is probably more like 100 years old. And obviously there's a lot of developments and inventions in between, but that just kind of gives you a background of where it comes from. So we're going to move on to the works that are in our collection. And we're going to start with photographer Dorothy Norman. And as I said, these are all photographs of New York City. These were taken in 1932 and 1942 was the time period for her works. This skyline is 1942. The other two works I'm going to show you in a minute are from 1932. So Dorothy Norman was a photographer, a writer, and a social activist. And she really captured a depiction of the era through not only through her capturing the city and the environment, but also she took a lot of portraits of the early 20th century artists, which is not really in the discussion that we're having today. But she was born in Philadelphia. She studied English and literature at Smith College and at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. She settled with her family in New York City, and that's where she really discovered her passion for photography and writing. Her involvement with photography was inspired by her intimate relationship with photographer Alfred Stieglitz, who taught her the mechanics of the medium and was a frequent subject of her work. So she had met Stieglitz in New York in 1927, and as their relationship developed, he encouraged her to make her own photographs. So under Stieglitz's mentorship, she learned about development and printing techniques and began documenting the activities and installations around Stieglitz's gallery, where she also oversaw the operations. So she, as I mentioned, she did a lot of portraiture and really established herself within the artistic community. But she also, at the same time, was extensively photographing New York City and Cape Cod. She was not only a talented photographer, but she was also an accomplished writer. She was the publisher and editor of Twice a Year, an arts journal that appeared from 1938 to 1948. And she wrote a column in New York Post from 1942 to 1949. She published several books about Stieglitz. And she also had a friendship with Indira Gandhi and visited India several times, and also took a lot of photographs documenting the social change in India. So she was somebody who was really interested in capturing what was going on around her at the time. The photographs have a very atmospheric quality, which was very typical of the time. They may seem a little bit dark to you, but that's the quality of the print that we have. So that's Dorothy Norman. And some of you may be familiar with Bernice Abbott. We did a Second Friday program on her last spring. Bernice Abbott was a very central figure and important bridge between the photographic circles and cultural hubs of Paris and New York. She was born in Ohio and in 1918 moved to New York City, where she initially studied sculpture and made connections with Marcel Duchamp and Man Ray, leaders of the American avant-garde. In 1921, Abbott moved to Paris and continued her study of sculpture there, and also in Berlin, and then returned to Paris, where she became an assistant in Man Ray's studio, where she learned to master photography. She had her first solo photography show in Paris in 1926, and it featured portraits of the Parisian avant-garde. She was making her living by taking portrait photographs at the time, and was quite successful. In 1925, at the Man Ray studio, Abbott first saw the photographs of French photographer Eugene Atget, And after Auger's death in 1927, she purchased most of his negatives and prints, bringing them back to New York when she returned in 1929. So her initiative preserved the whole Auger's whole studio and body of work, which was very important in influencing the Parisian and avant-garde of the time. So a very important part of her legacy is that she saved his work. When she comes back to New York in 1929, Abbott sees a very changing and transforming New York City. And the same way Auger had captured the changes in Paris during the turn of the century, Abbott takes the same notion about documenting and capturing the changes in New York City in the built environment. So she begins the series of documentary photographs that, with the support of the Works Progress Administration Federal Art Project from 1935 to 39, she was able to do this. There was a traveling exhibition and publication that was done in 1939. So she was very much an advocate for doing this kind of documenting your environment and capturing what was happening around her. So these photographs are a larger format photograph. As you can see, the dimensions, they're closer to 30 by 40 inches in size. So these were taken in the 1930s, but these particular prints in our collection were printed in 1982. She did print them, but oftentimes, if you see a photograph that has two dates, oftentimes it's the date of the negative when the original photograph was taken, and the second date could be the date when it was printed. Because sometimes a photographer will go back and print photos again. So that's one of those things you can look for. And this is the work of Andreas Pfeiniger. He was very much a pioneer, both visually and technically, in photography. He was born in Paris. He's the son of the painter Lionel Pfeiniger. He was educated in Germany. And his interest in photography developed while he was studying architecture. So he worked both as an architect and a photographer in Germany for 4 years. Under the political circumstances that it made it until political circumstances made it impossible. He moved to Paris and he worked in the Corbusier's studio and then moved on to Stockholm, where he established his own photographic firm, specializing in architectural and industrial photography. With the outbreak of war in 1939, Pfeiniger moved to New York, along with many artists who left Europe around that time, where he was a freelance photographer, and he also worked for the U.S. Office of War Information. He was a staff photographer for Life magazine from 1943 to 1962. If you're familiar with Life magazine, that was one of the most important magazines for photographers to be in at the time. So he was really interested in capturing the world around him, especially the constructed forms. Obviously, his background in architecture, I think you can see the relationship there. His images emphasize design and simplicity and clarity and kind of an organizational structure. He often built and customized lenses to accommodate what he wanted to do. So he was somebody who, if he knew how he wanted a certain image to look, he was trying to find out how he could make it work the way he envisioned it. So he often also very much preferred using black and white photography. So these photographs were taken in the 1940s. So this happens to be one of my favorite photos in the collection. I just love I think, unfortunately, it's much better in person even than it is on the screen, but it's got this great quality of the light coming through the elevated tracks and all of the patterns that light disperses across the street. It's a beautiful photograph. Okay, so now we're going to move into the 1950s, and this is the work of Ken Hayman. He was born in New York City and attended Columbia University. And while at Columbia, he took a class with the anthropologist Margaret Mead and began a collaboration with her that lasted for over 20 years. Mead invited Hayman to accompany her on her trip to Bali shortly after his graduation, and other trips soon followed. His photographs of these trips are in 2 books he co-authored with Mead, Family and World Enough. He worked on a number of other books, including 10 children's books, and he was photographed for a variety of magazines, including Life, and several photographic agencies, including Magnum. So Magnum is an international photographic cooperative that is owned by the photographer members. It was founded in Paris in 1947, and the journalists covered events around the globe. And one of the important things was they retained the copyright for their own work. So it was a way of these photographers, as photography was becoming more common in print publications, and the distribution of those images was becoming, the photographer wanted to maintain control of their images. So being part of Magnum was one of the ways that they had maintained control over their own images. So rather than some of the big street scenes that we've seen, Hayman takes photographs that are more like what's happening on the street in front of you, more of a kind of a, I don't want to say snapshot, but more of a candid camera kind of, what's happening as you're going around. So it kind of captures a little different aspect of the city rather than some of the buildings that we've seen so far. And one of the photographers that was best known for doing this, and this is in the 1960s, this is Garry Winogrand. He was became known for what was called street photography, where he would take pictures of what was happening out on the streets, was very much what he was taking photos of. So Winogrand was born in New York City and became interested in photography while serving in the military. He studied painting at City College and at Columbia University, where he learned how to develop and print photographs. In 1951, he studied photography with Alexei Brodovich at the New School for Social Research. Afterward, he worked commercially for photography agencies, freelanced for magazines, and also did personal work. So his photographs have been exhibited widely during his own lifetime, and he was often grouped with a couple other photographers of the same era, Danny Lyon and Lee Freelander, as documentarians of what they call the social landscape. So he's taking photographs that are helping to describe the times that he's living in. And Winogrand received 3 different Guggenheim fellowships to produce photographic studies of American life, to study the effect of media on events, and to photograph California. He also taught photography at the School of Visual Arts in Cooper Union in New York, and the Art Institute of Chicago, among other institutions. His photographs are observations of daily life. He was very fond of visual puns, and often titled his works. In this one happens to be untitled, not a good example of that, but he often titles his works with puns and plays on words and things like that. He's quoted as saying he photographed to see what the world looks like in photographs. So his work can be seem like it's very lighthearted, but he had a lot of technical skill that he used. Oftentimes his works are slightly at angles. I'm just going to go back a little bit. It's not dead on straight. Sometimes there's a little bit of an angle, and the perspective is a little bit different, was something that he often did. So this is basically kind of really gives you a feeling of the 1960s in New York City. He's capturing the people rather than the buildings. which a lot of the other earlier photographers were capturing the built environment and the buildings and the transportation structures. He's really capturing the people on the street and what's happening outside with people. So a little bit of a different take on photographing New York. So we're not just talking about architecture. Okay. Leon Fried was born in Brooklyn, and he initially wanted to become a painter. However, he began taking photographs in 1953 when he was in the Netherlands and discovered that was really where his passion lay. So he also studied with Alexei Brodovich in New York City. And then he moved to Amsterdam in 1958, and he photographed the Jewish community there. He pursued this concern in numerous books and films examining German society and his own Jewish roots. His book on Jews in Germany was published in 1961 called Made in Germany, and was about post-war Germany. Another book was 1965. So he worked as a freelance photographer from 1961 onwards. He traveled very widely. He photographed people in America in the 1960s, events in Israel in 67 and 68. He photographed the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and he photographed the New York City Police Department from 1972 to 79. And the photographs that we have here are from the photographs he took of the New York City Police Department. He joined Magnum in 1972, and he primarily covered American civil rights movements, which is really what his biggest body of work that he's known for. But he also produced major photo essays on Poland, on Asian immigration in England, on North Sea oil development, and Spain after Franco. So it really was a lot of exploration on society and violence and racial discrimination. So this is in the 1970s. He's taking these photos. These ones, as I mentioned, are when he was taking photographs of New York City police and what they were doing. So again, he's taking more about the people and what's happening on the streets, not as much about the built environment. And these photos, there's a couple photos here from the 1980s by photographer Marilyn Bridges. Her photographs function both as her personal expression and as documentation. She has combined photography with her passion for flying in order to preserve what she refers to as the messages of humankind. Written on the earth and covering the reach of time from prehistoric to the present day, these markings and monuments form a complex tapestry of human culture, recording both our sacred and secular lives. So while I'm showing you a couple images that she took aerial views from New York City, she also photographed a lot of historic sites around the world, things like the Mayan temples in Central America, different sites in Peru that are more archaeological sites that she takes from the air. But she also takes cities from the air. It's really her personal vision because she loves to fly. And yes, she flies the plane while she photographs. She's got it rigged up that she's got her camera going as she's flying. She does pilot the plane. So she can, as she banks the plane and turns the plane, she controls the angle of her approach to what to the details of the landscape that she's photographing. She very much photographs early in the morning or late in the afternoon because she likes when the sun catches the buildings and the monuments and our sites and the long shadows that can develop when the sun is at a different angle. And they can really highlight the three-dimensionality of what she's photographing. And that's one of the things she considers when she's photographing. So this one is called Lane Mand. This is it's actually the old toll plaza at the Verrazano Narrow Bridge. So if anybody drives on and off Long Island knows that toll plaza. So in the contemporary landscape, she depicts the timeless acts of farming and grazing. And most of the scenes that she has do not include a lot of people in them. I mean, you see the cars, but she's not photographing people. She's photographing the environment. And whether it was architectural achievements from ancient times through contemporary times, she's finding that evidence of people and industrialization, but not the people. And for her, she's had multiple exhibitions around the world, and she also has clients that she has photographed for, and her work has appeared in many major magazines, things like Vanity Fair and Condé Nast Traveler, Life, Smithsonian, and also in the New York Times. So, and I'm just going to go quickly back. This is Marilyn Bridges' view of the Chrysler Building from the plane, from the aerial view. And I'm going to show you that because this is Tom Barrell's view of the Chrysler Building. So these are from the 1990s. Tom Barrell was a graduate of New York School of Visual Arts, and he spent 15 years as a master printer for the photographer Robert Mapplethorpe. So his subjects include urban architecture, seascapes, and meticulously detailed botanical and nature photographs. So his work is a little bit different. He has a really strong command of technique because he's such a quality printer. So that's important in his, when he prints the actual printing of the photograph is something that he spends a lot of time and has a lot of experience in. He developed a unique toning process that enriches the color and opulence of the photographs. You'll notice these are slightly different color tone than some of the other ones, right? They're black and white, but they have a little bit of a different tone to them. And that's the process that he developed. That's why it's a little bit different. He is very attentive to the clarity of line, form, pattern, and texture. So I think you can see that in this one. And also this is under the Verrazano Narrows. So it's interesting that Marilyn Bridges did the Chrysler Building and the toll plaza at Verrazano Narrows. And Tom is doing the Chrysler Building and the bridge and the same bridge. Very interesting juxtaposition there. So it's the same, it's the different photographers take on a same subject, right? So that's kind of an interesting comparison to make. Whereas, because he's underneath of it here, taking it from underneath, whereas she was above, right? So that's kind of a different perspective, but a different photographer. I'm going to go to the 2000s, and I'm going to show you 4 works by Donna Ferrato. Born in Ohio, Donna Ferrato was a self-taught photographer who became a freelance photojournalist in 1976. She was based in Paris and Belgium until 1978 and traveled extensively in Europe and the US throughout the late 1970s. In 1982, she was hired to photograph couples who epitomized the wealthy American lifestyle of the 1980s. After witnessing the husband of one of these couples brutally beat his wife, Ferrato embarked on an independent documentation of domestic violence in the U.S. She spent several years visiting women's shelters, emergency rooms, and prisons, and traveling with police to make contact with people involved in domestic violence. Her photographs on the subject were published in Life magazine, the New York Times, Time, USA Today, the LA Times, among others. So this became her documentation of domestic violence, became really what she was known for in the 1980s. She published a number of books on the subject matter, and the book was called Living with the Enemy. And she also founded the Domestic Abuse Awareness Project, which produces photographic exhibitions on domestic violence to raise money for women's shelters. So this was her, the domestic violence photos were her earlier work from the 1980s and into the 90s. Her current work, her recent work, is about her neighborhood in Tribeca. She lives in Tribeca, and as I'm sure many people know, New York City constantly is changing, and Tribeca has become much, very evolving at the time of losing a lot of its uniqueness to some more, chain stores and chain restaurants coming in, and that kind of gentrification coming in. So she's lived in Tribeca since the 1990s. And in 2008, she began publishing these photographs that she calls 10013, which is the zip code for Tribeca. And she kind of captures these images. They have some of them have a very kind of dreamy quality to them, a very kind of almost surreal quality. This one, unfortunately, I think in the digital photography, you lose a little bit. This photograph in reality is incredibly beautiful, and there's great depth in this image. And you really get the feeling that you're, feeling that misty rain come down on you. And it's got the light shining off the wet pavement. It's really a very stunning photograph. So this is, again, a different view of Leonard Street in Tribeca. So what she's trying to capture here, and this is some construction, a tar man in Tribeca fixing the streets. She's trying to show you the way it's changing and the things that are happening in her own neighborhood. It's similar in a way to what Bernice Abbott was trying to do in the 1930s, to show how things were changing, to show how the physical environment was changing as cities do, and as buildings change, neighborhoods change, and as they become more desirable, and different people who used to afford to live there can't live there anymore, that kind of thing. So this is some construction workers. So those are just a sample of some of the photos of New York that we have in the collection. I'd be happy to talk about any one in particular if anybody has a specific question. Most of these photographs are traditional gelatin silver prints, which means they were done in the darkroom, as you would expect. But Donna Ferrato's are actually called pigment on fiber prints, and that basically, it's an archival digital print. So they're a little bit, they're still signed and dated and numbered and everything on them. She still is doing the work, but it's the process has changed a little bit. And a lot of contemporary photographers don't print themselves anymore. They don't print in the darkroom anymore. Excuse me, I should say. They don't print in the darkroom anymore. That's becoming a thing of the past. And I know Hofstra is one of the few universities that still teaches darkroom processes. A lot of the universities have gone to just teaching digital photography and new media type things, but Hofstra still teaches traditional photography and development in the studio. So does anybody have any questions or comments?
They're beautiful pictures.
Glad you like them. How are you, Linda?
I'm fine. I did photography. There was a man that I used to go to his darkroom. He was an engineer with Grumman's, and he was retired. But it's such a fascinating thing to be able to produce a picture And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that Hofstra does still do it, but it's a
Yeah, it's
dying.
one of a lot of places have stopped teaching it, but Hofstra's
Yeah.
decided that they decided a number of years ago that they were going to continue to do it. So, yeah.
Wow.
I was happy. Hi,
Oh, hi, Bob.
hi. I was happy to hear that you still had the darkroom facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Hofstra in the mid to late 70s, and I took a photography course that was actually run by a sculptor. The main photography person, I didn't get the professor for that. He was great. And what you've shown here is just such a wide variety, really beautiful and exciting photographs. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you for having this on Zoom because it is difficult for me to get out, and I have enjoyed these second
Oh,
Fridays.
good. I'm glad. Thank you for joining
So
us.
thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
I would wonder what some of the modern pictures are, one of the current pictures are like. You don't have anything, do you?
Well, these ones, the ones from Donna Ferrato are from 2007, 2008.
Right.
You mean?
But any from students at Hofstra at all?
Oh, not in our collection. No, we don't collect students.
Right.
Yeah.
Karen,
Fred, you Fred, you have your hand up?
Yes, I have a question. I'm not a photographer, just an enthusiast.
Yeah.
The pictures involve the people photos. Doesn't the photographer have to get permission to publish those from the subjects?
Not if you're on the street.
Right.
If you're out in public on the street, it's a little bit I mean, especially not at the time. It was very typical that you would just, if there's a certain about your expectation of privacy when you're out in public is different.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. Yeah, but if you're out, like people take photographs of like the parade routes and things like that. If you're in those photos, you don't have to get permission. If you're in a kind of a closed environment or in a lot of times if you're in a certain space, then you have to get permission. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
okay.
I myself, as a total amateur, whenever I've tried to do that, I feel terribly self-conscious that maybe the subject doesn't want to be photographed. So I try to be kind of clandestine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we take photos in the, in the museum, and especially if we have children, we have to get photo permissions. But that's different because we're in the museum space.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And Barbara Stone?
oh, and then Karen, after Barbara, we do have a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. Barbara? Barbara, I can't hear you. Can you? Barbara? Oh, I'm sorry, you're having trouble with what's the question in the chat, Sasha?
The question in the chat is from Barry Goldberg, and it says, one of the photos under the Verrazano was horizontal and vertical lines. Do you know what that is?
Under the
All right,
bridge.
let me go back to see which. This one?
Yeah. It's under the bridge.
It's the way he printed it. If you're talking about how it looks almost like it's got a double edge on it. I mean, that's the way he printed it. So he's printing, it's a very intentional choice. If you look at the other one from the Chrysler Building, see, he's almost making it like a picture in a picture.
Right.
So that's just the photographer's choice of how he's printing it.
What was he intending to convey with that?
I don't know specifically. I mean, I think that it's, I really think it's just his own decision about, I don't know, making it, trying to make the image stand out more. I mean, I'm not really sure
Or
exactly.
he's letting you know it's a
Oops.
picture that he's doing it.
Well, I think it's just a way of him manipulating the image. I mean,
Could be. I don't know. Whenever I see things like that, it makes me think of the material that's being used in the process. Like it reminds me
because-
of that.
I think because he was so into the printing, the actual printing of the photographs, I think it was one of his ways of kind of making it his own and, you know, trying to change it up a little bit, you know, how he was printing it.
Well, nobody takes a picture under the bridge looking up. That's the whole thing. It's
Yeah,
I did when I took
we
a
usually see
tour.
it from the side, so we can see the shape of it. But this is under the bridge, looking up at it.
yeah,
I took a tour on the Thames in London that goes under all bridges, and I have
Yeah.
pictures like this. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's a different perspective from what we usually see with
Yeah.
photographs.
Yeah.
And it's very dramatic.
Oh, yes, it is. And it's very dramatic, the composition of how he's got it, because it's almost like a triangle, right? It's
Beautiful.
almost like a black triangle, the way
Yeah.
he's got it here. So it's very dramatic, very intentional for sure. I mean, I don't think
Very
there's any question about his intention, so.
And the way he got the sky, I mean, it's just, the bridge itself just stands out so because the
Yeah.
sky is,
Well, because of when he's looking at his camera and he's finding the image that he wants, he's, you know that there's other buildings on to the left and stuff, but I mean, on the right of it, but, you're not looking at that.
and then
'Cause
where
this-
it goes back down into the ground, at the far end,
Yeah.
almost looks like a tornado funnel coming up. So it's very dramatic, very,
Yeah,
very.
yeah.
Makes an impact.
And so Barry, did I answer your question well enough?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Thank-
good. Okay. And then Anne had her hand up.
And after Anne, Karen, Barbara Stone has a question.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I'll do Anne first.
Yep, that's fine.
Anne, you want to unmute yourself? There you
Hello,
go.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, greetings from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh, welcome.
Just wanted to tell you that I am a photographer's daughter.
Uh-huh.
Up watching my father. My father was an old-fashioned portrait photographer,
Mm-hmm.
and he then progressed to doing weddings and with candid cameras, etc.
Yeah.
No color photography at that time. So I spent a lot of time in the darkroom with him.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to ask you is, do you see any difference in quality between what is produced digitally and what was produced the old-fashioned way by using the darkroom?
There are differences. It's kind of a judgment call whether you think one's better than the other. The darkroom, there can be, there's a lot more, the photographer has a lot more subtle ways to play with the image. Only for the fact that, whether you leave it, how long you expose it, which chemicals you use, what type of paper you're using, all of these things have an impact on your final print. The pigment prints, I mean, you still can do manipulation with that. You can still change your image as you're printing it. And as I said, I don't want you to think that they're just printing off these prints and not being concerned about them. When these photographers are using the digital prints, they are there actively printing, because the photographs are all, as I said, they're all signed and dated and all of that kind of thing, so that we know the photographer approved this print themselves. This is what they wanted it to look like, right? So it's not, they look different. I don't know that I like one better or the other. there is a different quality to the image, and I'm not, Sasha, I don't know if I can, what you think of, I mean,
More sterile.
And I was actually answering a question in the
Oh.
chat. So just,
oh, sorry.
you're talking about the difference of when it's
Difference
printed.
between a traditional, you know, photograph developed in the darkroom and the digital print.
Oh, I think that the chemicals fuse the image to the paper in a very different way.
It's different.
color-
It looks different. When
the
you look
color-
at them side by side, you can tell that one was done in the darkroom and one was done digitally.
Right? It's like it's fused
It's-
into the paper when it's done in
It's
the
a
dark.
little bit, it does look different.
Yes.
I'm
Um,
Ann's husband, and I also have some experience with photography. I had a brother who was a very artistic photographer back in the 1950s, and I remember him going in the darkroom with him and helping print the photographs. And I remember he used tricks like if he wanted to make the sky darker and part of a
Yeah.
picture, he would cut out what was called a dodger and hold it
Yeah.
over the part of the picture you want to make lighter, control the different exposure for different parts of the picture. So that was a technique I remember
Yeah,
exposure to.
yeah. So there are, you know, when you're developing film in the darkroom, there are ways you can manipulate the negative in the image and how it's produced. And you can make areas lighter and areas darker and all of those different things. And the better you are at printing in the darkroom, the more you can do those things. But you can also do very similar things with the software and the digital printing. But the actual final product do look different.
Can you
You know-
print black and white with digital?
Excuse me?
Can you print black and white with digital?
Yes, that's what the Donna Ferrato are that way.
Okay.
Excuse me, let me just go. These are pigment, called pigment on fiber prints, and they're actually digital prints, and they're black and white.
Karen,
Um,
hello?
Yes,
I'm Frankie Friedman, and I got in late, and I just wondered, is this exhibit at the gallery?
no, this is not on exhibit right now.
Oh,
This
okay.
is just a presentation, a digital presentation.
Oh, okay, I'm so sorry.
But I will segue to, we're doing a photo show on, in the fall of 2022, so another year.
Okay, I'll have to wait.
So hold on.
Okay,
I
sorry.
No, that's
see that-
okay. Yep.
I see that you recorded this. Is it available to be seen?
Toby, you gotta give us a few days to put it on our website,
Oh,
Oh, so we-
good.
okay? It
Good,
takes a
because
few
I-
days for us to
thank
go
you.
through the process.
Yeah, I
Good.
came in a little late too, so I missed the
Thank
beginning.
you.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Karen, let's
Thank
not forget Barbara Stone.
I know, go ahead. I was just gonna say, Sasha, go ahead.
She's having a problem with her unmute, and notice
Okay.
that George Stephanopoulos donated a photo by Ken Heyman.
Yeah,
George have a connection to Hofstra.
not directly. I mean, most of the works in our collection are donated to us, and they come from a variety of sources. The photos from George Stephanopoulos were donated through an intermediary. So there was somebody who basically helps collectors donate work to institutions. So there was somebody in between. He didn't actually come out here and donate the works himself or anything like that. But there were a number of, for a couple years, he donated photos to our collection.
Will you do another program for us? I enjoyed this one so much.
Once we're done, I'm gonna tell you when our next one is so we are gonna do one more in December. And then we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be doing a series of virtual programs in February and March next year. So I'll talk about those when I'm getting ready to sign off, but we're trying to balance, now that we're back in person, we're trying to balance having in-person events and digital events, virtual events. So trying to keep up doing some of them. So, but all of our, as I mentioned before, somebody asked about the recordings on our website, which is hofstra.edu/museum. There's a virtual museum page, and all of our Second Friday programs are recorded and are on there. So you can always go, if you go to our website and just You'll see it's a virtual museum page, it's called, and it has all of the recorded programs that we've done.
Oh, great.
So you can always go back and see what else we've talked about and covered from the collection.
Are you considering doing hybrid programs with your live programs?
We haven't because of logistics. It's
Yeah,
a little, to do a program that's hybrid, most of our events take place in the galleries itself. So it's not,
yeah,
there's
then it's
no,
difficult.
we
Yeah.
don't have the sound, we don't have like the microphones and the sound system. It's not like we're in a lecture hall where we can kind of clip into a system. We don't have a recording system in the galleries.
Yeah, you would have to walk around with the camera.
It would be difficult because if somebody in the gallery was asking a question, they wouldn't be mic'd, so you wouldn't hear it online. So the hybrid program is the hardest to do. So we haven't gone there, and I don't know that we will, but the types of programs
I
we're
think
doing.
you would have to do it on your telephone and video it, show it on the telephone as you're walking around.
But the problem is if I'm with people, if it's an event that's
Yeah,
happening.
it would be too difficult for you. The only way you can do hybrid
There's
is
a lot
if
of
you take the
technical
lecture.
issues. There's a lot of technical issues with doing a hybrid program.
You could do lectures that way, but you can't do gallery tours.
Yeah,
that way.
it's true, because if I'm talking in the gallery with a group of people and somebody's trying to join us virtually, you might be able to hear me, but you wouldn't hear what the other people were saying unless they all
Right.
had microphones on.
Karen,
Exactly.
how big is your out-of-state audience, people like myself?
Oh, I don't know that we've made that statistic, have we, Sasha?
No, but that's a good thing to put on my to-do list.
We know that there are people from out of state, but I don't think we ever asked people exactly where they were from.
No.
Yeah, definitely there are people out of our region, for sure. We know that, yeah.
I did add the virtual museum link in the chat if anybody wants to cut
Oh,
and
thanks,
paste that
Sasha.
or make note of that. Okay, any more questions in the chat? Please feel free to add them.
All right, I'm just going to, since I alluded to what our next program is, just go to the end of my presentation here. So we're going to do something a little bit different. It's going to be on a Thursday, December 2nd at 1 p.m. And it's going to be a faculty member here at Hofstra, Professor Lisa Merrill, who's going to join us live from London because she's going to be at the Lubaina Hamid exhibit at the Tate Modern Gallery. She's been working with this artist for a number of years, and Lubaina Hamid is she's the Turner Prize winner from 2017, which is it's the big art prize in Great Britain, and she's having this exhibition now at the Tate Modern, which is one of the big museums in London. And Professor Merrill had written essay for the exhibition catalog. So she's going to join us. It'll be 1 o'clock our time, 6 o'clock her time. And she's going to join us and take us through some of the exhibition at the Tate Modern. So it's a little bit of a different program, but we thought you might enjoy that. So the link is on our website. And if you're on our constant contact list, you will get an email about it. So it's a little bit in the future. And then I just want to plug that we are open if you want to come in. In the David Filderman Gallery, we have Nevertheless She Persisted, which is women artists from our collection. And in the Emily Lowe Gallery, we have Where Were You? Witnessing History, which is about artistic responses to major events. We're talking about World War II, the Civil Rights Movement and anti-Vietnam War protests, 9/11, and then natural disasters like Superstorm Sandy and Hurricane Katrina. I do want to say, if you come to visit us in person, come to the Emily Lowe Gallery first, because in order to go to the David Filderman Gallery, which is in the Axon Library, you need to get a museum pass. because the library is still only open to Hofstra users. But if you come to the Emily Lowe Gallery, we will check your vaccination and we'll give you a pass so that you can go to the other gallery. And we are open, but Tuesday and Friday, 11 to 4, and Saturday and Sunday, 12 to 4. We will not be open Thanksgiving weekend, by the way, so we will be closed for that. And that's our contact information if you want to join us. I think Sasha put the link for the virtual museum page on the chat, but this is our website, which will include everything about exhibitions, upcoming exhibitions, calendar of events, how to be a member and join us, all information about our permanent collection, the virtual museum, which I spoke about.
And Karen, can you just go back to the exhibition dates, because Barbara Stone has a question.
Okay.
That these are the end dates. These are
the end dates. They're on view right now until Emily Lowe Gallery will be on view through December 10th. And then the Nevertheless will be on view until January 21st of 22. So those are the last days you can go see them. And just for the Nevertheless, we are closed between like December 23rd and January 2nd. The university shuts down during that week, so we are closed at that time. Anyone else? Any other comments or questions?
No, just Anne Spensieri Fides, sorry for mispronouncing your name, says, thanks, Karen. Very cool photographs.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And that's it. I don't see any more questions coming up in the chat.
Just a lot of thank yous.
A lot of thank yous.
All right. So I thank you all for joining us. It was nice to see everybody. A lot of familiar faces. A lot of familiar names.